Let's begin with a backstory. This area is called Lavasa, one of the most favorite destinations for motorcyclists in Pune, the district where Kawasaki India assembles their motorcycles. The first big bike that they assembled in Pune was the Ninja 650, a motorcycle that taught me never to buy vehicles without test riding them. That was back in 2011. I bought that bike looking at the spec sheet, and that was instant regret. I brought that motorcycle to these very roads to run it in, to try and fall in love with it. But we just didn't click. It almost felt like a failed arranged marriage. Probably I wasn't a good enough rider. But many agreed that that motorcycle lacked front-end feel, the brakes felt wooden, and it was probably the most lethargic, full-fed motorcycle of that time. Years have passed, the roads have clearly degraded, but the Ninja 650, oh, that's grown. And how it's become such a brilliant motorcycle now. Let's take a look. Simply look at the confidence with which she enters these corners. I remember how the 2011 model had me scared about washing out the front end under braking or not being able to flick from one side to another for the switchbacks. Especially this particular corner. It always felt a bit tricky, it felt a bit skittish with all this patchwork and mid-corner undulations. So if you had to really remain ahead of all your buddies who were on KTM Dukes, you had to make sure that you enter this corner hard and then still somehow maintain the composure of the motorcycle, get a good line so that you get a good entry into the next right-hander. Easier said than done, but on that 2011 Ninja, it was always a little bit of a scare. Getting that entry right, getting that exit right with that kind of a funny front end was quite scary. The 2017 model was a bit better, but this new 650 is not just sharper than all the previous Ninja 650s, it's also entering these corners with a lot more authority. And what it has up its sleeve, a new trick, is traction control, which on roads like these, which are a bit gravelly and now riddled with potholes, it gives it a good safety net. That adds to their confidence. As for the traction control, you get 3 levels of adjustability. A very alert level 2, a mild level 1, or no traction control at all. Even on level 2 of the traction control system, it doesn't feel too intrusive, unless of course you are coming over a speed hump or riding on a rumble strip. That is where you can feel the traction control working. You can also feel it in the way it delivers power or cuts power. Otherwise, when you are riding, sport riding, going around twisties, it doesn't feel intrusive at all. Even on the ruts and joints, it's not too overbearing, so it doesn't really kill the riding fun, and that's a very good thing. In fact, I think traction control was the only missing piece of the puzzle on the Ninja 650. And now with the inclusion of it, I think the package seems complete. Which means that this generation of the Ninja 650, which originally debuted in 2020, now has all new age equipment. The safety net of ABS and traction control, a more evocative styling, a compact and sharp design inspired from the ZX6R, a lighter construction which makes this motorcycle only weigh 196 kilos with all its fluids topped up. The sheen of a 4.3-inch TFT full-color display and the added convenience of the Kawasaki Rideology app. Some would wish for upside-down forks too, but these 41mm conventional units along with the near horizontal rear monoshock do a fine job of tackling our poor road conditions without bottoming out, and at the same time maintain a taut feeling through the bends. These Dunlop tires aren't the most confidence inspiring. You will read a lot of forums, people complaining about these tires, the grip, especially the wet weather grip of these tires, not so good. However, with the additional benefit or the additional safety net of the traction control, you can now enjoy this bike a lot more despite the slightly lesser feel that you get from these tires. You can lean a lot more with that safety net watching your back. Of course, the chassis complements further with better cornering stability. You also have a sharper rake, which means that the turn-ins are quite sharp, and then you have the lighter construction, which means that it's not just the turn-ins but also the switchbacks where you can enjoy the bike a lot more. It feels a lot more confident. In fact, the way it changes directions, it feels almost as quick, if not quicker, than the Triumph Trident. which is a big feat for a motorcycle that wears a full fairing but has handlebars that are almost as upright as a street bike. This is a format that I thought wouldn't work, but today it seems to do just fine. So what you essentially get is a bike that feels sporty around the bends but feels as easy to maneuver in the city as a street bike, and on the highway it transforms into a comfortable sport tourer. Even the pillion will be happy because the rear seat padding is a bit thicker now than the 2017 iteration. They could have done with a better grab rail though. This one not only looks ungainly, it also restricts your luggage or saddlebag options. Even the brakes see a vast improvement over all the previous generations of the Ninja 650. Of course, the front lever feel, it's a bit too spongy for my liking, but the bite is quite predictable, it's quite progressive, and that is what I like. Also, what you get is much better engine braking than before. So, in terms of the overall braking, in terms of the overall deceleration, it feels a lot more confident whether you're riding around the twisties or even on the highway. And should you have to get into a panic braking situation, even if you have to drop the anchor from as high as 150 kilometers an hour, despite the slightly softer suspension at the front, it still brakes in a very nice and predictive manner. It doesn't have too much nosedive, nothing ever feels unnerving. And that is good news. The 649cc parallel twin from Kawasaki is one of the sweetest middleweight engines that you can bet your money on. And it isn't hard to see why it does duty in everything from this Ninja to a street naked, an adventure tourer, and even a cruiser. The beauty of that engine lies in how responsive the low end feels or how grunty the mid-range feels. It translates into a quick outright and in-gear acceleration. Now in terms of the power delivery, how the power feels to you as a rider, it slots in between the Ninja 400 and the big ZX6R. Of course, compared to the 400 or the 6R, this is actually more comfortable because it gives you a lot more room. So if you are someone like me with a larger frame, it will give you more room to move around compared to a Ninja 400. But at the same time, it doesn't feel as big as the ZX6R, which may or may not be to someone's liking. But at the same time, it doesn't feel as aggressive, as committed as the 6R. The engine also doesn't heat up too much, and even bumper-to-bumper traffic jams don't worry it. On the highway, the engine does get a bit buzzy in the 4 to 5000 RPM range, which isn't a deal breaker, but it compounds into another problem because the only thing Kawasaki has still not improved on this bike is the quality of the plastics. Since we mentioned the ZX6R or even the 10R, the quality of the plastics doesn't feel as good. The fit and finish doesn't feel as good. Of course, they are more premium motorcycles. Here, the paint quality is sort of matching up. The graphics look good. This Kawasaki Racing Team livery also looks good. That's the one I would pick up. But it still leaves me wanting for better quality of materials. Like for example, I said that between that 4 to 5000 RPM mark, you get a bit of that buzzy feeling from the engine. What that also translates to is a bit of rattling from these panels up top. And that's not a very good feeling, especially when you're spending close to 8 lakh rupees for this motorcycle. The new Ninja also has a shorter visor now, so wind protection is limited when you are sport touring. But a visor extension accessory should sort it. What needs a bigger improvement though are the headlights. The LEDs look cool and everything, but the spread and the throw don't match the speed of the motorcycle. So if you are going to be sport touring, a pair of aux lights might be a good idea. But if you're going to use it purely for power commuting, highway cruising, or corner carving, you may not need any of these accessories. I'm really impressed with how the Ninja 650 has shaped up after all these years. I think it's the perfect package for anyone who wants to upgrade to their first big bike. At the same time, that engine has enough poke, there's enough confidence in those riding dynamics to even keep seasoned riders from growing out of it. In fact, if I had to pick one bike to do it all from the current crop of 650s, it would be the Ninja. And I would take it even over the Versys 650, the one that has a longer travel suspension. And that, coming from me, after the kind of experience that I've had with the 2011 Ninja 650, that says a lot. That's how good the new 650 is. Go give it a try.